Slow Horses by Mick Herron. This is how River Cartwright slipped off the fast track and joined the slow horses. 8:20 Tuesday morning in King's Cross, crammed with what the Obi called other people. Non-combatants, River, perfectly honorable occupation in peacetime. He had a code to sell. We've not been at peace since September 14. The Obi's delivery turning this to Roman numerals in River's head. MCMXIV. Stopping, he pretended to check his watch, a maneuver indistinguishable from actually checking his watch. Commuters washed around him like water around a rock, their irritation evident in clicking of tongues and expulsions of breath. At the nearest exit, a bright space through which weak January daylight splashed. Two of the black-clad achievers stood like statues, their heavy weaponry unremarked by non-combatants who've come a long way since 1914. The achievers, so-called because they got the job done, were keeping well back, as per instructions. 20 yards ahead was the target. White tee under a blue shirt, River repeated under his breath, adding details now to spider skeleton outline. Young male, Middle Eastern looking, the blue shirt, sleeves rolled up, the black jeans as stiff and new. Would you buy new trousers for a jaunt like this? He stuffed the information away, a question to be asked later. A rucksack on the target's right shoulder listed, suggesting weight. The wire coiled into his ear, like River's own. It might have been an iPod. Confirmed visual. River touching his left ear with his left hand, spoke quietly in what looked like a button on his cuff. Confirmed. A gaggle of tourists crowded the concourse, their distribution of luggage suggesting they were circling the wagons. River skirted them without taking his eyes off the target, was heading for the annex platforms, those which waved off trains towards Cambridge and points east. Trains generally less packed than the northbound AHSTs. Unbidden images arrived of twisted metal scattered along miles of broken rails, with trackside bushes lit with flame and hung with scraps of meat. What you have to bear in mind, the Obi's words, that worse sometimes does come to worse. The worst had decreased exponentially over the last few years. Two transport cops by a ticket barrier ignored the target but studied River. Don't approach him, went silently. Don't come anywhere near me. It was a small tea chills in which Enterprises found her. Last thing he wanted was an audible altercation, anything that startled the target. The cops went back to their conversation. River paused and mentally regrouped. He was of average height, this young man, River Cartwright, was fair-haired and pale-skinned, with gray eyes off and seemed inward-looking, a sharpish nose and a small mole on his upper lip. When he concentrated, his brow furrowed in a way that led some to suspect him of puzzlement. Today he wore blue jeans and a dark jacket, but if you'd asked him that morning about his appearance, he didn't mention his hair. Lately he favored Turkish barber, where they go in close with the scissors, then apply a naked flame to the ears. They give no warning that this is about to happen. River emerged from the chair, scoured and scalded like a doorstep. Even now his scalp tingled in a drought. Without taking his eyes off the targets now 40 yards ahead, without specifically taking his eyes off the rucksack, River spoke again into his button, followed but gave him room. If the worst was a detonation on the train, the next worst was one on a platform. Recent history showed that people on their way to work were at their most vulnerable, not because they were weaker, but because there were a lot of them. One of them packed in enclosed spaces. He didn't look around, trusting that the black-clad achievers were not far behind. To River's left were sandwich outlets and coffee bars, a pub, a pie staff. To his right, a long train lingered. At intervals along the platform, travelers negotiated staircases through its doors, while pigeons mostly changed rafters overhead. A tannoy issued instructions, and the crowd on the concourse behind River settled as individuals broke away. Always in railway stations there was a sense of pent-up movement. The crowd was an explosion waiting to happen. People were fragments that just didn't know it yet. The target disappeared behind a huddle of travelers. River shifted left and the target appeared again. He passed one of the coffee bars and the same couple triggered a memory. This time yesterday, River had been in Islington. His upgrading assessment involved compiling a dossier on a public figure. River had been allocated a shadow cabinet ministry, promptly had two small strokes, and was in a private ward in Hertfordshire. There seemed no process for nominating a substitute, so River had picked one off his own bat, and had followed lead out 2 days straight without being spotted. Office gym, office wine, bar, office home, coffee, bar, office gym. This place's logo sparked that memory. Inside his head, the open bar to River. My job, same place. Good idea? Good idea. The target bore left. Potterville. River muttered to himself. He passed under the bridge and turned left, too. A brief glimpse of overhead sky, gray and damp as a dishcloth, and River was entering the mini concourse that housed platforms 9, 10, and 11. From its outside was half a luggage trolley protruded. Platform 9 and 3/4 was where the Hogwarts Express docked. River passed inside. The target was already heading down platform 10. Everything speeded up. There weren't many people around. The next train wasn't due to leave for 15 minutes. A man on a bench was reading a paper, and that was about it. River picked up his pace, closing the gap. From behind him came a shift in the quality of the noise. From all over babbled a focused murmur, and he knew the achievers were drawing comment. But the target didn't look back. The target kept moving as if his intention was to climb into the furthest cottage, white tee, blue shirt, rucksack, and all. River spoke into his button again. He said the words, "Take him," and began to run. "Everybody down!" The man on the bench rose to his feet and was knocked off then by a figure in black. "Down!" Up ahead, 2 more men dropped from the train's foot roof into the target's path. We turned to see Reverend arm outstretched, waving him to the floor with the flat of his hand. The achievers were shouting commands. "The bag! Drop the bag! Put the bag on the ground!" River said, "and get to your knees, but I don't drop the bag!" The target dropped the bag. A hand scooped it up. Other hands grabbed at the limbs. The target was flattened, spread-eagled, wiped on the tiles while the rucksack was passed to River, who set it carefully on the now vacant bench and then zipped it. Overhead, an automated message was pulled around the rafters. "Would Inspector Sams, please report to the operations room. Books, an A4 notepad, a pencil tin. Would Inspector Sams..." The Tupperware box holding a cheese sandwich and an apple. "Please report to..." River looked up, his lip twitched. He said quite calmly, "The operations room. Sergeant, don't hurt me, the boys..." He had a face full of flooring going pointing at his head. "Target," River reminded himself, "not boy, target." Inspector Sams, "Sergeant!" He turned back to the rucksack. The pencil tin held 3 bureaus and a paperclip. "Please report to..." "He's clean." River dropped the tin to the bench and upended the sack. Books, notepad, a straight pencil, a pocket-sized pack of tissues. They scattered on the floor. He shook the rucksack. Nothing in its pockets. "Check him again. He's clean." "Will somebody turn that bloody thing off?" Catching his own underpinning, he clumped, smashed it. "He's clean, sir." River again shook the rucksack with a rat, then dropped. And let it drop. One of the achievers began speaking quietly but urgently into a collar mic. River became aware of someone staring at him through the window of the waiting train. Ignoring her, he began to trot down a platform. "Sir," there was a certain sarcasm to that. "When Inspector Sams, please report to the operations room. Blue shirt, white tee." Picked up speed. A transport policeman stepped forward as he reached the ticket bay, but River looped around him, shouting an incoherent instruction, but ran full pelt back to the main concourse. When Inspector Sams and the recorded announcement, a coded message to staff that a security alert was taking place, switched off. A human voice took its place. "Due to a security incident, this station is being evacuated. Please make your way to the nearest exit." He had 3 minutes before the dogs arrived. River's feet had a direction of their own, propelling him towards the concourse while he still had room to move, but all around people were getting off trains, onboard announcements having brought the sun holds to journeys that hadn't yet begun, and panic was only a heartbeat away. Mass panic was never deep beneath the surface, not in railways, stations, and airports. The phlegmatic cool of the British crowd was oft remarked and frequently absent. Stag burst in his ear. The Trenoy said, "Please make your way calmly to the nearest exit. The station is not closed." "River?" He shouted into his button. "Spider, you idiot! You called the wrong colors!" "What the hell's happening? There are crowds coming out of every..." "White tee under a blue shirt, that's what you said." "No, I said blue tee under..." "Fuck you!" River yanked his earpiece out. He reached the stairs where the crowd sucks into the underground. Now it was streaming out. Initiation was its main emotion, but it carried other whispers, fear, suppressed panic. Most of us hold that some things only happen to other people. Many of us hold that such one thing is death. The Trenoy's words chipped away at this belief. "The station is not closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit." The tube was the city's heartbeat, thought River. Not an eastbound platform, the tube. He pushed into the evacuating crowd, ignoring its hostility. "Let me through," they said, minimal impact. "Security, let me through." That was better. No path open, but people stopped pushing him back. 2 minutes before the dogs. Less. The corridor widened at the foot of the stairs. River raced around the corner where a broader space waited, ticket matches against walls, ticket windows with blinds drawn down, the recent queues absorbed in the mass of people heading elsewhere. Already the crowded thinned escalators had been hauled, the tape strung across capes off, the platform below were emptying of passengers. River was stopped by a transport bell. The station's being cleared. Can't you hear the bloody tannoy? I'm with intelligence. The platform's clear. They're being evacuated. You sure that's what I've been... You have CC? Of course, show me. The surrounding gates grew rounder. Echoes of departing travelers swung across the ceilings, but the other sounds were approaching. Quick footsteps. Heavy on the tile flowed the dogs. River had little time to put this right. Now! The cop blinked, but caught River's urgency, could hardly miss him, pointing over his own shoulder at the mark. I adore no access. River was through it before the footsteps owner appeared. The small windowless room smelled of bacon and looked like a voyeurs den. A swivel chair faced a bank of TV monitors, each blinked regularly, shifting focus on the same repeated scene. The deserted underground platform was like a dull science fiction film. A draught told him a cop had come in. Which platforms are which? The cop pointed groups of four. Northern Piccadilly, Victoria. River scanned every 2 seconds another blink. From underfoot came a distant rumble. What's that? The cop stared. What? That would be a tube train. They're running? Station's closed, the cop said, as if to an idiot. But the lines are open. All of them? Yes, but the trains won't stop them in Egypt. What's next? What next train, damn it? Which platform? Victoria northbound. River was out the door. At the top of the shallow flight of stairs, barring the way back to the mainline station, a short, dark man stood, talking to a headset. His tone changed abruptly when he saw River. He's here, but River wasn't. He'd leaped the barrier and was at the top of the nearest escalator, snapping back the security tape, heading down the motionless staircase, 2 deep steps at a time. At the bottom, it was nearly empty. The vibe again. Tube trains passed close stations at a crawl. River reached the deserted platform as the train pulled into it like a big, slow animal with eyes for him alone. It had plenty of eyes. River felt all of them, all those pairs of eyes trapped in the belly of the beast. Intent on him as he stared down the platform as someone had just appeared from an exit at the far end. White shirt, blue tee. River ran. Behind him, someone else ran too, calling his name, but that didn't matter. River was racing a train, racing and winning, drawing level with it, outpacing it. He heard slow motion noise. A grinding mechanical feedback underpinned by the terror growing within. He could hear thumping on windows. Was aware that the driver was looking at him in horror. He was thinking he was about to hurl himself onto the tracks, but River couldn't help what anyone thought. River could only do what he was doing, which was run down the platform with speed. Up River, blue tee, white shirt. Someone else was also doing the only thing he could do. River didn't have breath to shout. He had barely breath to push himself onwards, but he almost managed to be fast enough. Behind him, the tube train was picking up pace. He was aware of the driver's cabin overhauling him 5 yards from the target, because this was the target. This has always been the target, and the swiftly narrowing distance between them showed him for the youngster he was. 18, 19, blonde hair, brown skin, and a blue tee under a white shirt. Fuck you, Spider. That he was unbuttoning to reveal a belt packed tight with. The train pulled level with the target. River stretched out an arm as if he could bring the finishing line closer. The footsteps behind him slowed and stopped. Somewhere swore. River was almost on the target, half a second away, but close. It wasn't nearly enough. The target pulled a cord in his belt, and that was that.